Well, when we talk about successful Iranians around the world, we're usually referencing doctors or business people or, say, tech innovators, but there is a growing cohort of prominent young politicians of Iranian background who are increasingly populating parliaments across the globe. And my first featured guest today is an Iranian born Swedish politician and a member of the Swedish parliament. Azadeh Rojhan moved to Sweden with her family when she was 5 years old. She became interested in politics as a teenager and joined the Social Democratic Party around the age of 17. She was first elected as a member of parliament in Stockholm in 2014. Azadeh has been outspoken about Iran issues, particularly since the uprising of Bloody November, Aubon. And during the recent uprising, she's been working diligently to echo the voices inside Iran in the Western world. She was in Toronto for the big conference and program that took place here a couple of weeks ago called For Iran. And right now, Azadeh Rojhan joins me from Stockholm, Sweden. Hello.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Very nice to have you on the show. Thanks for doing this. I wish we could have done it in Toronto, but you were too busy. You were too busy for us. Now that you're back in Stockholm, you have some time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't when I was there, but now we had the time. So happy to be here and thank you for inviting me.
Speaking of you being here in Toronto, you were here for this giant concert or rally, I suppose, where there were a lot of Persian pop stars performing, but it also felt like some of the real rock stars in the room were the politicians of Iranian background from around the world that got quite a reception all weekend. How did it feel to get that kind of response in Canada?
Very unusual, actually, because usually we are politicians representing our own countries. I mean, I'm a politician from Sweden. I'm usually representing Sweden. But when I was in Toronto, it was like we are Iranian politicians. Our Iranian heritage became much more yeah, it was more focused on our Iranian heritage. So that was a very new experience and a very special one, actually.
But you are quite Iranian. I mean, is that new for you to feel like you're repping the Iranian heritage?
Yeah, I'm quite Iranian, actually. I speak Farsi, and yeah, I am. But at the same time, I'm also very, very Swedish.
Just on the issue of, I mean, I'm going to ask you about identity more a little later, but just on the issue of you being here in Toronto and the weird juxtaposition of you being treated like you're an Iranian representative. Now, the more I think about it, I mean, there was this moment where you were in that conference or press conference or whatever it was, that meeting where there were opposition leaders, Masih Alinejad, Hamid Ismaili, and Reza Pahlavi, etc. And then a few of you guys, you were there up on the platform as well. But you're actually not a politician representing Iran. You're a politician representing Sweden. So it
Exactly.
is a strange juxtaposition. Did you have moments in the weekend where you had to explain that to people? Why they would say you'd be asking you about the, I don't know, the Iranian economy or something, and you'd kind of go, well, actually, I'm my thing is Stockholm.
No, not maybe in that way, but maybe in the way that I mean, there was some part of the discussions that we had in the different panels, and also some questions raised from the public who were present. I mean, those were sometimes when I heard those questions, there was sometimes when I felt like, well, do we really know who is answering these questions? And I mean, we are politicians from our own from European countries, because there were my colleagues from Germany. We have some colleagues from Canada, and also, like, have we decided if we are leaders in this matter? Have we decided that, or are we just spokespersons? I mean, there is a difference, and sometimes it was a little bit difficult to find out. And I don't know.
What do you consider yourself in this scenario?
Spokesperson, of course. Spokesperson. I haven't lived in Iran for, oh my God, so many years, 30 years, more, 32 years. I can't be a leader for the Iranian people. How could I? I haven't experienced all the things that they have experienced. I'm not in the front line fighting for another future. I'm not doing that.
Mm.
So it would be wrong saying that I'm a leader. I'm a spokesperson. I am using my platform to raise the Iranian people's voice outside of Iran. I'm using the tools that I have.
When we talk about how Irani you are, I mean, you left, as you say, when you were 5 years old, 32 years ago. What do you remember about it? What's the, if I say, what was Iran like? How do you answer that? I mean, you were born, by the way, in the middle of the Iran-Iraq War. So you're born at kind of an interesting time. What is your recollection of Iran?
I mean, I remember everything. Usually people forget those things, but I in some ways, those memories have been so important to me. So I really try to take care of them. So I remember everything. I sometimes even remember smells. I mean, I remember like how it could smell when I walked into a store with my mother shopping. I remember sounds. I have very clear memories of my home, my family, those I haven't met since I left. I have very clear memory from those days. But
a little kid isn't always aware of the geopolitical realities or human rights or whatever is going on. Was it generally a positive experience for you? Were you confused about why we're leaving Iran when you were 5 years old?
Yeah, so I knew that something was wrong, but I didn't know what. But I could sense it. So, yeah.
Why did your family choose to leave when you were in the early 1990s?
I mean, my father decided very, very early after the revolution that he didn't want to be in Iran. He wanted to leave Iran. So when he met my mother, that was one of the first things that he told her, that I'm not going to stay. I can't bear living in this country. So he decided very early. And when they had me, a girl, he was even more convinced that we need to leave.
Was your father political? Was he? I mean, are you following in his footsteps as a politician?
Well, he wasn't engaged in maybe the way that I am, but he was political. He had a lot of. He was very much into journalism. He liked that. So one of his biggest wishes was to be a journalist in Iran. He didn't follow that dream, unfortunately, for obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, as long as I can remember, we have talked politics at home in different ways. So it has been a very natural part of me growing up, talking about society, politics, stuff like that.
What was it like for you, Azadeh, when you're 5 years old, you're suddenly transplanted to Sweden? How would you describe growing up in Scandinavia as an Iranian kid?
Well, the first years were very, very difficult. I mean, it depends on who you ask. Many of my friends or people that I know, they don't remember the first years as I do. I do remember everything. That's a problem, actually, because I remember how difficult it was. I remember how my parents really, really struggled in the beginning. But
what were they
I mean,
struggling with?
learning the language, adjusting to the new society, the new rules. I mean, when you leave such a huge part of yourself, and you come to a completely new country with new rules, a new way of thinking, people who maybe don't want you there, and you have to deal with all those things at the same time, all emotions, all thoughts, and at the same time taking care of children, at the same time trying to adjust yourself to the news. It's so many things going on. I mean, sometimes when I think about difficulties that we have in life, and I try to compare it with what they went through, it's like, come on, they did such a big they did such a big what's it called,
Adjustment,
adjustment, no,
sacrifice,
I mean sacrifice. Yes, thank you, sacrifice. And I can't even imagine all the emotional and psychological troubles that they had to go through, and changes to adjust and to become a part of this society.
I feel the same
But
way. I feel the same. I have
yeah,
my dad's name tattooed on my arm, his signature, and one of the reasons is because and he left, years before your parents did, and it was such a pioneering thing to do, to pick up and go to a new place. I don't know that I would have the strength to do it. I mean, I think
mm,
it's still hard to immigrate, but today you can at least go somewhere and get on WhatsApp with your friends or check Facebook and see who's in town. Or,
exactly.
I mean, at that point, even in the early 90s, none of that existed, right? So you're really
No,
transplanting yourself to somewhere where you have no ability to, there's no support system around you necessarily, unless you have family there or something.
no, exactly. And I think also that you arrive with such an ideas about what you want to do and all this hope that you have, and then maybe none of them is available. It becomes very clear that, oh my God, I can't do this. It's too difficult, or the challenges are too many. So all that, I mean, it must be I can only imagine how difficult it must be. But I mean, at the same time, growing up in Sweden, I think has, I mean, if you look at the Iranian diaspora, or if you look at any diaspora actually in Sweden, it's just a few diasporas in Sweden that maybe hasn't been integrated in the same degree that other diasporas have. But if you look at the diasporas in Sweden, my generation, those who came in the 80s and in the early 90s, the system in Sweden has made it possible for the children of those immigrants to really become a part of this society,
Hmm.
and actually climb in every part of the society.
And was that the case for
Um,
you? What was the hardest part of the adjustment for you?
I wouldn't say I had any problems or any hardship with the adjusting. I mean, the problems were
Well, you
not
said
in
the
the
first few
in
years
a,
were hard. You said the first few years were hard.
it wasn't because of the society. Actually, not. I mean, when I think back to my first contact with my school, because when I came I was 5 years old, so I went to preschool like maybe 6 months, and then I uh, went to school. I only have beautiful memories from my teachers doing their best to make us feel at home, to make us feel a part of the school system, to learn Swedish, to learn about the Swedish traditions. I have wonderful memories from that. That was not the hard part. The hard part was in the private part. I mean, with my parents, with their struggle,
Mm,
becoming a part of the society, because I became a part of the society very, very fast,
mm.
as did all my friends who came at the same age. So it's two different parts. The struggle
Yeah.
was more private. The other one, adjusting to the society, it was so easy through the school system, because they really knew how to do that, how to make that possible for us. Do you know what? When we came to Sweden, there was actually uh, a very interesting system for how to integrate people. You were assigned a Swedish family
Mm.
who would take care of you, and who would learn you about the traditions. They could take you to
You mean
different
even though you had your family, you have a second family?
no, the whole family.
Oh, the whole family would
What?
have a family.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a
Wow.
Swedish family who took care of us. So they could like learn us about the holidays, so we could celebrate some of the holidays with them, just to learn about them. They could take us to new places so that
Wow.
we could, yeah, yeah. But that system unfortunately doesn't exist anymore.
Uh,
But when we arrived, that system was still in place. So we were in contact with them for many, many years after that.
were you
So
were you always a confident kid?
yes, I had to be.
Why did you have to
You
be?
know, well, I was the first child, and I came to Sweden with my mother alone. My father arrived a little bit later, and I learned the language very fast. So yeah, you have to. Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I ask is because it occurs to me that you certainly need a degree of confidence to become a politician. You have to at some point be putting yourself out there. You're basically auditioning. People are literally voting on whether they like you enough or not in order for you to get elected. And one reason it's surprising to me that you wanted to go into politics is that, or impressive perhaps, is that you didn't have a lot of role models outside of Iran. That is, there haven't been a lot of Iranian born female politicians in the diaspora until recently. How did you believe you were cut out for the world of organized politics, that you could even do that?
Oh my God, there are so many answers to that question. So first of all, the Swedish political system, it's more focused on the party and not on the individual. So you have that is a big difference from like the American system or the British system. So it's a lot. The biggest focus is on the party. So people vote for the party, not necessarily for the individual, but they
Meaning,
do that
meaning you
also.
meaning you have a built-in support group. You have the cushion of the party rather than putting yourself out there in a more individual way.
So first you have to put yourself out there for the party. So so it's actually the hardest part to be elected from your party, saying that we believe in you, we want you to represent us. The second part is that your party need to get enough votes so that you can have enough seats in the parliament and then become a representative for that party in the parliament. That's one part of it. The second part is that I joined the youth league. So every political party in Sweden, in Europe, has a youth league. And you can become a member of the youth league from the age of 13. And I did have role models. And my biggest role model was Ardalan Shekarabi, who was the head of the youth league of the Social Democratic Party. But I didn't choose the Social Democratic Party because of him. I knew about the different ideologies. I knew what my view was, but he being the head of the youth league of the Social Democratic Party was also very important for me because I had a role model in him.
And let me just ask you about just ideologically, from what I understand about the political parties in Sweden, the Social Democrats are center left or sort of left. You're not the furthest left wing party, but you are the sort of center left party, and then there's a couple other centrist parties, and then there's right wing parties, right?
Exactly. So, and we have, I mean, the Social Democratic Party in Sweden is very unique because we have been ruling in this country for almost 100 years, give or take. So the whole welfare system in Sweden is built. I mean, the Social Democratic Party has built the welfare system in Sweden. And I was 17 years old. I was going to enter university, and I had always been very active in matters of school. I've been active in school. I had different kind of it's high school, right? 17.
Yes.
It's high school.
Well,
Yeah. So
yes, at the end of high school, yes.
the end of high school. Yeah, exactly. So I was very much active in high school. I had many different roles there about how to try to make changes within the high school and stuff like that. So when I was leaving high school, I was looking for another way to be able to achieve change in different matters. And the school system and the educational system was very important to me. So I started to study about which party was more representative for my ideas. And I knew that I was Social Democrat because I really believe in the welfare system in Sweden. I know that it's only because of the welfare system that I could become whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
There were no obstacles for me to become whatever I wanted. Any other immigrant child growing up in Sweden, or any Swedes for that matter. The welfare system made it possible for anyone, regardless their background, regardless the economy of the family, to become whatever they want.
And
So
by the way,
I knew that I was
and
social.
by the way, growing up as a liberal or sort of left wing kid, for me, it was always in Canada. Sweden was always the golden example, right? It's the shorthand. Well, what about Sweden? Would be the answer to everything. But I have to say, because I think that this is where you were going with what you were saying. From what I understand, you don't have a university degree, right? You didn't end up going to university.
No.
And I love that. And I'll tell you why I love that. Because I do believe that not everyone needs to go to university to become their best self. I profoundly believe in post-secondary education, and I even believe in arts degrees. Like, people should just go and read and learn and whatever,
Yeah,
literature, etc.
sure.
But it doesn't have to be for everyone. And particularly, in the Iranian community, there's such an emphasis on being tahsil karde, and not just getting a university degree, but a certain kind of university degree, which really counts. I mean, I did political science and history, which is like basically bullshit to Iranians. What is that? What are you going doing that for? So it's interesting, given the pressures on Iranian kids growing up in the diaspora, and also because you're very clearly well spoken and smart, that you didn't get a university degree. Did you not face any parental pressure to go to university, and how did you
Oh my
defend yourself?
God. Well, I did study at the universities, but I never finished my studies because the thing was that, first of all, my father still says that you need to get your degree. Come on. And I was like, yeah, but I'm a member of the parliament. I can do that later on. I don't have time for that. But he's still very upset that I don't have a
Well,
degree.
he
So
is. Your
yeah, yeah, of
success,
course.
your success hasn't changed that. They still.
No, I mean, before every election, when I don't know if I will be elected or not, he's like, it's all right. You can go back to university and take it. It's like, come on. So yeah, but I did study. So I studied Middle Eastern studies and political science. But I really want to amplify what you said, because I don't think that universities, I mean, the studies at a university level necessarily means that you are educated. And in the Swedish political system, anyone, regardless level of studies or background, can become a member of the parliament. So we have people who never studied after ninth grade. So I don't know what is
Sorry,
that.
isn't that the case with any country? I mean, you say that as if that's some. I think anybody can become a politician in Canada too. I don't think you need to have a
Exactly, you
university.
can, but unfortunately, it depends on the culture. It depends on how that is looked upon. I don't know how the culture is in Canada. Of course you can, but usually people maybe don't accept that. But in
Sure.
Sweden,
Yeah.
it's not something strange. It's not something that people talk about. It's like, okay, and also it is. I mean, it's so accepted that when they do the list for the parliament or for the local parliament, they usually try to have people who are educated and people who are not educated, so that everyone so that the whole society is represented, so that is actually a part of it, that you have to have people from all kinds of
Has a
backgrounds.
has a political opponent ever used it against you, like say in
No,
a
never. That would
campaign
be
said,
strange.
well, it would
That
be
would be.
strange, but I'm curious. I
Oh my
mean,
God.
if politics
No,
are as nasty
never.
as they are here, somebody would say, well, she doesn't have a degree, or
Okay, let me put it this way. If they would do that, that would be so strange. You know why? Because regardless, whoever has governed Sweden, regardless political party, color, anything, Sweden has the most, okay, let's see if I use the right word now. Illiterate, tahsil nakarde,
well,
do you know what
illiterate.
I mean?
That's not the right word. 'Cause
Okay, so non-educated.
well, no, that doesn't sound right either. But they haven't completed their.
So
Do
yeah,
you mean illiterate, like they can't read and write?
no.
Oh.
Okay, that was completely wrong word.
You
No,
mean
but
they
I
haven't
mean,
finished official education? That's what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So the former prime minister of Sweden, no, not the former one, the one before, hadn't even studied after the ninth grade. So it's not. I mean, regardless color. So our ministers, it's not something that is needed, because when it comes to the political work, when it comes to the political knowledge, that is something that you gain through your political party.
Mm.
So I've been I would say that my political party has been a better university for me than any university in the world, because I've learned everything through the youth league first, and then through the party.
How much
That
of a slave do you have to be to your political party's ideology? I mean, can you step out of line as a politician, or do you have to kind of vote in line with the party all the time?
When it comes to voting, I can't step out of the line, because, I mean, since the political system is the way it is, and the political party is so strong, if you step outside the line when it comes to what your party has decided, then you are being non-democratic towards all the members of
Oh,
the political
I see.
party who
Right,
has decided that
right,
this is our line. So
right.
first you have to have a respect for what you have decided within your party, and stick to that. Even though it's not in your interest, you
Mm.
still have to respect that, because it's been democratically decided. So I can't step out of the line and vote against my own party in any matters, even though I don't agree on it. But in the debates, in the discussions within the party, and when it comes to, I mean, just the Iranian matter, I've been working against my party for many years. Since 2009, actually, I've been saying that my party needs to change its mind when it comes to its Iran policies.
Interesting.
So,
Let me come to that.
yeah.
Let me just ask you about, it sounds like now that you're describing what it's like in Sweden, I sort of understand the answer to this next question, but you were first elected in 2014 to the Swedish parliament. I mean, you're 28 years old. That's pretty young for a politician in any country. Was that, did that feel young to you? And what were the biggest challenges you faced as this Iranian and Swedish 20 something that suddenly gets elected to parliament?
I would say the age wasn't a problem. I think I mean, since I had been a member of the youth league for already 10 years, then I was a part of the political system. I knew everything. It wasn't difficult in that way.
Okay.
And also there were a lot of people, a lot of young people being elected at the same time as me, especially from my own party, because my party had decided that 30% of all the representatives on different lists had to be under the age of 35, so
Wow.
that we could have more young representative
Diversity.
in our different, yeah. So there were a lot of young people being elected at the same time as I was. And also look at, I mean, if you look at our ministers now, we have very young ministers also. One of the youngest minister ever is actually an Iranian woman named Rumina Pourmokhtari. She's a minister of environment. It's amazing, actually.
And how old is
Even though
she?
I don't agree with her politically, I'm very proud of her.
How old is she?
Oh my God, don't ask me. She's like 26, I think, or something like that.
Right,
27. So she's very young.
right.
Uh,
She's
yeah, but
surpassed you, and she probably has a university degree. Yeah, tell your father about her.
yeah,
Um,
you should do that, actually.
so
I don't know if you know, yeah.
let me segue into that. Was really helpful getting sort of a background on you. I want to segue into asking you about being Iranian and then the Iran issues, which you just alluded to, and how you deal with them in the Swedish parliament. Um, First of all, just as a general question, how do you describe the Iranian community in Sweden? I was in Stockholm, I guess, about a year and a half ago, and I know there's a fertile Persian community there. How do you describe it?
Is it? Do you really think it's we have? Yeah, I would say that the Iranian diaspora in Sweden is actually the diaspora that is mostly not connected to each other.
Hmm,
I mean, other diasporas in Sweden are much more connected and work much more together than we do. Um, and I think that goes back to our wish and struggle to become a part of this society. So we have a little bit, there is a bigger distance between us than other diaspora groups. And that's not me talking. It's actually the opinion of most of the Iranians that you speak to. You have a connection within maybe your family and you have close friends, but the diaspora is not connected in that way,
interesting.
especially not in Stockholm.
Maybe it was just the friends that I have there who were taking me to places, but I went to a couple of restaurants where it was all Iranians, and not Iranian restaurants, but kind of hangouts where I just kind of saw a lot of
Yeah.
Iranian people. But when you say the desire or the push and pull of wanting to integrate, I mean, back to you, your focus on being Iranian to a certain extent, your identity. I love the idea that from what I understand, your husband was Swedish but learned Farsi, and that you've taught your kids Persian. Do your children identify with Persian heritage? I mean, they were obviously born in Sweden, right?
Yes, of course. I mean, their father is Swedish, so yeah, it's been very important to me because my parents did the same thing to me. They said that I wasn't allowed to speak Swedish at home, and we weren't. So me and my sisters, we never spoke Swedish at home. We spoke only Farsi, and I learned to write and read Farsi when I was at the age of 5. Um, so for me, I mean, first of all, language is something that you always can use. It's very important. But at the same time, I mean, to really learn about your own identity, who you are, where you come from, your language is very much linked to that. And if you know yourself better, then you are much more open to learn to know others. And
Sure.
also you are much more open to the world. And you get to learn the world in a better way, I think. So you have to first know yourself, where you come from, why, maybe also find the answers to some of your parts of your personality or anything. And the language is very much linked to that. So me and my former husband really agreed on that we need to learn the children Farsi, and he was actually very much firm on that also. So he had to learn Farsi because we were going to speak Farsi at home.
Wow, what a guy.
And he speaks, he's fluent in Farsi. And I mean, I'm so grateful for that because I am very happy that my children are growing up knowing Farsi. And yes, they do identify themselves as Iranian, but they, it's also depends on the mood. When they think that I am being too much Iranian, they are saying that, oh, that's because you're Iranian. And when I, so they use it against me also.
What's an example of that when you're too much Iranian?
I think it's when I'm very strict on some things. So, school, for example, studying.
If you'll excuse the superficial nature of the question, is your ex is he blonde? Is he like a blonde looking Swede
Yeah,
guy?
you know what? It's
Because
so
I
funny. Yes,
love the idea
he's
of this
so
blonde
blonde.
Swedish guy speaking Persian, running around,
You He's
people.
actually known in our municipality because he and the children walks around and they go shopping or go to the store. 3 blonde people speaking Farsi.
I love it.
You don't know how many times we have people are like staring at us. And also there has been some occasions when I have been with them, so people are coming to us and saying like, oh, this explains everything. Now you are Iranian, you are the mother of the children.
Yeah.
Because they have been so confused. So
That's amazing.
it's very funny.
I love that. I love that image. And so the kids they're into it. I mean, I listen, I remember being in England when I was going to Persian school, which apparently was a disaster given how bad I am at reading and writing Persian. But I remember it kind of like sort of hating it, like, oh, I got to go to Persian school again and learn. Were they enthusiastic? Have they always been enthusiastic about this?
God, no. I mean, that is one of our, I mean, not anymore, but before it was one of our biggest struggles at home. I mean, uh, because I wouldn't answer back if they spoke in Swedish with me or with their father. If they spoke Swedish, we didn't answer back. So we wait for them to say it in Farsi. So when they want to make us mad, or they are being very irritated in us, so they use Swedish words, they speak Swedish just to make us angry, and then the whole battle, struggle, conflict will be about them speaking Swedish and not about the issue that we were having a conflict about. So no, it's a big struggle actually, but I don't care. I mean, I hopefully in 20 years they will say thank you for learning us
That's
Farsi.
your strict Iranian side butting up
Yes,
against your lax
I'm
Swedish side.
I'm Yes, no, that's I am very firm on this matter. They really need to learn to speak Farsi. They can't read and write very good because we have actually um, in Swedish school system, every child who has another mother tongue than Swedish, they can have education in that language provided from school. So they go to those classes.
Mm.
But yeah.
Let me segue into politics and
Yes.
Iran, especially. First of all, we talked about the interesting ways that you were seen in when you were in Toronto and when you travel now and as this representative of Iranians, even though you're a Swedish politician. I wonder how you balance that responsibility in Stockholm, in Sweden. Clearly, there's an Iranian community there. Clearly, they care. They're passionate about what's going on in Iran. Like I've seen the protests. I've seen people out in the streets in Stockholm like they've been in the rest of the world. And clearly, some of those Iranians would have expectations from you. How do you accede to their interests, or how do you negotiate how you're going to represent?
It's such a good question because it's been so difficult this past months. It's been really difficult because at the same time, you really want to be able to meet with their expectations, the Iranian diaspora, the Iranians who really hopes that we can do big changes. At the same time, my first responsibility is towards the Swedish society and the Swedish, the politics that I'm representing in Sweden. So I've had the struggle that I had to find the balance towards my party and my responsibility in the parliament, and my main work and my interest and engagement in the Iranian matters. And I won't say I cannot say that I have found the balance, and I can't say that I'm actually. I mean, I would say that these past few months has been the most difficult months in my life when it comes to work, because I'm not satisfied with any part of it. I'm feeling that I'm behind when it comes to my regular work, and I'm behind when it comes to matters of Iran because I don't have enough time to do both. So these past months has been emotionally very, very difficult, at the same time also very, very difficult professional, from a professional view. So my colleagues maybe sometimes have been wondering, like, is this what you're going to do now? Because the Iranian issue is not what you're working with. You need to focus on this. And at the same time, the Iranian diaspora has been expecting us to do even more. Yeah, it's been very difficult to find
Thank
that
you.
balance,
I
and I
mean,
won't say that I have.
thank you for the honesty of that answer. What did let me unpack it step by step. First of all, what was your Azadeh, what was your personal reaction when you saw the uprising emerging in Iran? Not just the killing of Masa Amini. I suspect what your personal reaction to that would be. But when you saw an uprising emerging in Iran in the days and weeks after what happened to Masa.
I remember 2009 very clearly. I remember how we felt those first days, how hopeful we were. I remember every uprising after 2009. Every time they have been so violent towards the people, the uprisings. I mean, the price the people have paid. So this time, I didn't believe that it would be this large. I really didn't, because I thought that it would be even more violent very much earlier. And I didn't know what to wish, and I didn't know what I could expect. And even today, when people ask me, I actually had someone asked me this when I was in Toronto, like, what are your wishes? Do you want a revolution or something like that? And I was like, should I even have a wish when it comes to this? It's not my life being put in danger. I know that I want a free Iran. I want another Iran. I want Iranian people to live in democracy. I want them to live in a country where they respect human rights. But me having an idea about a revolution or having an idea about how people should achieve that, I think that's a too much to ask, because I'm not in a position to have an idea about that, how to do it. I only know what I wish for my people, for the Iranian people, for my people. So in the beginning, I was hopeful. At the same time, I was very scared. I was so worried about how will this end? How many people will lose their lives?
Mhm.
But at the same time, I also saw very early, I think we were many who saw very, very early that this is the first time there will be a real opportunity to change the Iranian policy from the West.
Well,
Because it was, yeah.
so I mean, right now there seems to be. Let me put it this way to you, because of what you've just said about the revolution, you feeling like you can't. You're not on the ground there. What can you? How can you prescribe solutions? Although I do think it's completely fair for you to say, "I wish there's a revolution," or "I wish that there's a different regime." I don't think that there's anything preventing you from saying that. I think, and certainly that seems to be the universal sentiment. It seems pretty much in the diaspora, except for those who are directly connected to the regime. But let me put it this way: there seems to be three camps right now. There's people who believe that the last 7 months, unfortunately, the uprising seemingly has lost a little bit of steam. The revolution didn't happen. So we kind of have to wait and mourn the kids that were lost, and kind of see what happens next. Then there's people, on the other side who are perhaps the more hopeful or more optimistic or more determined, who believe the revolution is still happening full force. These things go through different phases. You can't expect a million people on the streets every day, and that this is, we're on the path, and that there's no stop till Brooklyn. Let's keep going. This is where and then there's kind of a middle camp that says the goalposts have moved. And in other words, if the revolution does not happen, in terms of the mullahs actually being toppled, there's a camp that says we should be happy with the headway that has been made in the last 7 months. Where would you be in those three categories?
So first of all, I do want a regime change. Just to be clear on that, I really want a regime change. What I'm saying is that when people ask, do you think people should be out on the streets and complete the revolution? I'm saying that I can't answer that, because I would say that would be me saying to people, go out and put your life in danger. That is what I'm saying. So just to be clear on that, uh, I don't think we will have. I don't think anything will go back to what it was before. I really think that we are on a path forward. I do believe that this is the beginning of the end, but we need also to use the opportunities that we have right now to make those changes happen, both outside Iran, but also inside Iran. But saying that, I don't know what that would be. The Iranian people needs to find their own way to do that. But from the outside Iran, what we can do is that now that the Iranian regime has lost its, I mean, they don't have anything left. I mean, the idea of Iran, how the Western world looks upon Iran, it's changed so dramatically that we can use this opportunity. But we need to be able to, we need to use it more strategically, and we are not doing that right now. Now it's more, I mean, I wouldn't say feelings, because that would be wrong, but I don't feel like we are doing things with strategical steps. We are not taking the right steps in the right time with the right people. We need to do more things uh, differently.
Well,
And I think,
one
yeah.
of the things sorry, go, you finish. I
No,
didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, no.
Well, one of the things you were saying a moment ago is you said, this is the first time you really thought this was an opportunity to affect change in terms of the Western policy towards Iran, in terms of and that's, if there's been something heartbreaking for me that comes a close second, or obviously the most heartbreaking is Keon and Nika, and the people we've lost, Khuda Noor. But if there's something that's heartbreaking, it's the EU, It's the Biden administration. It's really coming to terms with, wow, I guess we really are alone. People are not, these countries are not, no matter what they say, are not going to actually be doing that much. There are a bunch of Iranian MPs in the Swedish parliament, like you, and you say you guys have been addressing issues in Iran since Alban, at least. Are you satisfied with what you guys have done in the Swedish parliament with respect to supporting freedom in Iran?
Well, I just told you I'm not satisfied with anything these past months. But I mean, at the same time, you know what? I mean, I wouldn't. I think it's very important also to talk about the steps that has been taken this few months, these past months, because for many reasons. You talked about EU. I mean, the biggest struggle EU has today is the matter of Ukraine, and the security within the EU, and that is much more important for them to solve. And it's a matter that we can't. I mean, it's with us the whole time. It's affected the economy. It's infected everything. So it's not even strange if, like, the Iranian issue is not the most important issue for them to work with or even to address. It becomes very important when we very clearly show how what is happening in Ukraine is actually also linked to Iran. We need to work on that even more, because the relationship between Russia and Iran is actually important to talk about when it comes to the conflict, the war in Ukraine, and how Iran is actually engaged in the war in Ukraine.
Which is how? Sorry, I don't want to get off on a tangent on that, but you mean by selling arms or etc.?
Exactly, and also there are some evidence that there are some Iranian, I mean, from the Sepah on the ground of Crimea, the island that has been occupied, the Ukrainian island that has been occupied by Russia.
Crimea.
Yeah, Crimea, yes. So there are several ways, and also, I mean, Russia and Iran getting much more close during this time, because both of them are being shut out from the other parts of the world. So there are many interesting facts to actually highlight more when it comes to the Iranian engagement in the war in Ukraine. That's one thing, and also the past decade, the European countries have had a lot of difficulties within the countries, within the EU to deal with. I mean, it's been the economical and financial situation, but also the immigration issue that has been taking all focus, actually. Everything, all policies, all discussions, every election in any country has been about immigration. And we are also saying, like, the democracy in EU, in the European country, is going backwards. So there are a lot of struggles inside EU and European Union and the European countries that actually are very, very scary and very much problematic, that takes a lot of focus and energy. So I think the foreign policies maybe are not the highest on the priority list, and hasn't been for the last decades, because the foreign policy becomes interested for countries when they need to show their power, when they need to show their power. And if you are weak inside, if you have internal struggles and issues and problems, then you are not strong enough to be engaged in foreign policies.
Okay, so when you say we need to be more strategic, as you did a few minutes ago, and less feelings, maybe less emotional in our response, what is a way that here you are, you're the politician, you're in Europe, and you've got the platform here. What's a way in which we can be more strategic and less beholden to our feelings?
Well, I mean, when it comes to how we work, we need to speak in one voice. I know that we are doing that when it comes to some parts, but in some parts we are not. And we need to also speak in the language that matters for those who we want to affect, who we want
Bring on side. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when I talk about the war in Ukraine, that is one way. When we want to talk about why the Iranian matter, why Iran, the Islamic regime, is also a threat to the outside world, we can talk about their involvement in the war in Ukraine. That's one thing. But also, when we talk about the values that we cherish, when we talk about democracy, human rights, we also need to talk about how this Islamic ideas that the Islamic regime has, how they want to take that to the outside world. So that's one thing. But when it comes to how to do all of these things practical, I think we need to know who to address when and what to say that would make them listen, and not always take the big steps. I mean, if one of the things that I raised during the conference in Toronto, I said that many are asking, like, who are the leaders of Iran? If there would be a change in Iran, who will be who will represent Iran? One of our answers should be, well, if you help us to set the political prisoners in Iran free, then you will have the leaders, the true leaders of Iran. We should be more talking about human rights than pointing out political changes, because it's much more difficult for them to understand. It's much more difficult for them to stand behind it. It's not difficult. It takes more time, because when it comes to politics, you always have to evaluate. Okay, if I do this, what would the result be? How would this affect me? How would that affect?
I got you.
But human rights is values that we all can stand behind. So talking about let us join hands to set the political prisoners in Iran free, that would be actually that would be easier for them to accept. That would be easier for them to stand behind, and maybe also put up pressure on Iran.
The concern with the human rights piece is that it costs nobody anything, everybody nothing. How do I say this? It's so
No,
easy.
I know what you
It's
mean.
so
Yeah.
easy to say meaningless things about human rights. We've seen I mean, Viktor Orban can talk about human rights in Iran. Anyone can talk about human rights in Iran, and they haven't really followed that up with a lot. I mean, they figured out somewhere around September and October, oh, now we need to say women in Iran need our support, human rights, don't kill kids, but they haven't done that much. And I have to say, I mean, I'm actually curious that you referenced Toronto. In Toronto, you won a lot of plaudits. You won a lot of support and love for pushing back on something Masih Alinejad had suggested. You did it in a very elegant way. You weren't attacking her, but about something she had suggested about shaming Western governments who aren't doing enough on the Iran file. And your argument seemed to be that, listen, we're not going to change things or get what we want by just shaming these people. But let me ask you to tease that out. I mean, why not call out, say, Justin Trudeau or Joe Biden if he and his government are not doing all that they profess they want to do about bringing democracy to Iran?
You can do that, but it depends on who is doing that. I mean, we are doing that when we are in rallies. We are doing that when we are outside protesting. But when you want to if you want to be a leader and you want to gain change and you want to be able to sit at the same table as these people that you are mentioning, then you can't say that. Then you can't do it in that way, because you will build up a distance between yourself and that person. No one wants to lose their face. No one wants to feel like I'm going into a meeting and I already know what that person feels about me. You want to go to a meeting and feel like, okay, I want to listen to their arguments and I want to know how does their issue, how is it in terms with what I want to gain. Because because people are saying like the Western countries only think about themselves. Of course they are. Why shouldn't they? Every country should think about themselves. Every country should be more concerned about its own population, its own people. I wish that the Jumhuriyat Islami could care about their own people. The reason why the situation in Iran is as it is because they don't care about their own population. They only care about themselves and they being in power. So you have to talk with people in their own terms. This is important for you because this will affect you in this way, in this way, in this way, and you have to do that.
But if cozying up or being genteel doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, when there was that call for that campaign to get people to walk out of the moment where the Iranian foreign minister was going to speak in the at the United Nations seminar that happened in Europe. And I didn't see people shaming European ambassadors. I saw I saw pleading. I saw please understand that we want you, and it didn't get us anywhere, did it? I mean, it didn't. I mean, nobody left the meeting in terms of anybody of import.
But at the same time, I mean, come on, we have had the same Iranian policy for I don't know how many years. I mean, you can't change that in such a short time. You have to do it step by step. You have to take it. You have to understand that they have been so focused and concentrated on the nuclear deal
Yes.
that they haven't even thought about these issues, because the only thing that has been important for them is the matter of nuclear deal and what would happen if Iran gains a nuclear weapon. And now they have to start thinking about human rights in Iran for the Iranian people.
If
and
we
they
think
can't
this is an inflection point, if this is the moment that the regime, I mean, this was the argument over the last 6 months, this is the moment, then, I mean, you're familiar with the thing, that mantra that they say, we don't need you to support us, just stop supporting the regime, stop enabling the regime. That's the argument, right? It's like, this is our chance, stop playing ball with them.
But they want to know what happens when they stop doing that. They want to know, how will this affect us? What will happen in Syria? What will happen in Yemen? What will happen in Afghanistan? What will happen if we stop doing this? Will we have a huge amount of immigrants to Europe? We already have that problem. We have had that problem for this past 15 years. Look what it has done with our countries. I'm not saying that immigration is wrong, but I'm just saying how the narrative is. The narrative is that we have immigration problems in Europe. So we have the uprising or right-winged parties just because of that. So they want to have answers to their questions. What happens if I do this? What happens if I put Sepah on the terrorist list? How will that be used against us? What will happen with the war in Syria? What will happen in Palestine? And how would that affect us? So they are thinking about the consequences for themselves, because they already have so many issues to deal with. And I mean, before, maybe US had another foreign policy, another idea on foreign policy. They were involved in many things. They don't have that. They don't even have the support of their own people to have that role anymore.
Okay, so let me ask you a specific question. You just mentioned it, and I'm asking this literally to get you to help us understand what's going on.
Oh my, okay.
It's not an attack. It's more of a, it's like,
a big
so you
responsibility.
talked about Sepah being on the terrorist list. Putting the IRGC on the terrorist list is a big issue for many Iranians around the world, and something that many activists and prominent Iranians have been calling for tirelessly, including all those opposition leaders in the coalition we've been talking about. The Swedish foreign minister, Tobias Billström, said in January that the IRGC cannot be named a terrorist organization, cannot be named. He said to place the IRGC on the terrorist list would require quote unquote strong evidence and documents. And a lot of people would say, well, really? Don't those already exist? And he said, I don't think such a move would be rational. So explain, I'm not going to even ask you whether you agree with him or not. Just explain to us.
No, I don't.
Okay, so why can he say that? I mean, where is that coming from?
I mean, it's coming first of all, it comes actually from what he is saying. They really say that they haven't been engaged in any terrorist actions outside Iran and stuff like that. It's not true, of course. I had a big argument with him in the parliament about this, and I gave him all the legal possibilities to actually for the EU to put the Sepah on the list. I went through all the legal possibilities with him, but the main reason is that the Islamic Republic have been so clever. The Sepah is, I mean, this is not me talking. Some political science people, I have had this explained to me, and I have asked around, and so the Sepah is actually, it can be seen as a part of the military, Iran's military. So it could be seen as a national
army
force,
sure.
Army,
yeah.
Exactly. And you can't put another country's national force on a terrorist list. You can't do that. There are no international legal rights to do that. No,
the
there's
US
none.
the US did.
I know, but they are saying that there are legal difficulties
right.
doing that because of this issue. Because they are saying that when you look at the Sepah and how the Sepah works and how the Sepah is organized, it's a national army, and we can't put a national army on the list. So that is actually one of the reasons. But I'm saying that we need to find legal people really good at international law who needs to look on this and actually find the arguments against that. And this is what I'm saying, that we are not using the opportunities because we are not facing them in their own. We are not facing them with the troubles that they have. We are just saying, no, put them on the list. It's like, come on, let us answer these questions.
Right.
Let us find people who can actually answer these questions. Right. Yeah.
Although I thought, I don't remember. I don't remember if I have this correctly, but I thought, as good as your point was to Massey, in that I thought her response was a good one too, or an interesting one, where she said, "Look, some of us, it's our responsibility to be activists, and some of us need to be diplomats. You be the diplomat, I'll be the activist to scream." And I think that is a good cocktail, right? That's a good kind of way to see it.
I completely agree on that. Yeah, I completely agree on that. At the same time, we also need we need to find out that when we are, if the activists want to also meet with the leaders, then you need to find a way to talk with them.
Right. That gets more complicated.
So you have to find that balance.
Yes, I got you. It is so energizing talking to you, and you're so impressive. I mean, you're only in your 30s, but you've been in the Swedish parliament for almost a decade. You're making a name for yourself around the world. Where do you want to take this? I mean, would you like to be the prime minister of Sweden?
Oh my God, no! Come on, no,
Why not?
No, no, not at all, actually, because I won't be in the politics forever. I mean, forever. I want to do other stuff too. I want to do other things, be able to maybe make changes in other ways. I don't know what. Maybe do something else, completely else. I don't know what that would be. I need to go back to the university maybe to find out.
I think you may be the first successful politician I've ever met in my life who doesn't like the idea of continuing to be a successful politician.
I mean, there are other people who are really, really much better than me in being a prime minister. So please let them be. I will support them. I wouldn't be a good prime minister. No, I don't want to do this forever. I want to do other stuff too. I don't know what. I haven't found out, but I found out. Let's see.
Azadeh, it is such a it's so good getting to talk to you. Thanks for doing this. If there's a bunch of people who listen to our program and watch our program inside Iran, And I thought before I let you go, if we give the microphone over to you for a moment, what would you want to say to them?
I would say I've never been so proud of being an Iranian as I've been these past few months. And being also an Iranian woman, I mean, the courage, I mean, it's something never seen before. They really taught us about how to be courageous and how to be fighting for something that you really believe in and doing it with your life in danger, but doing it because you really believe that you want another future, you want to see changes. So I've never been so proud of being an Iranian as I've been these past few months, and I really believe that we will see changes in Iran, and it will all be thanks to courageous Iranian women.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for the work
Thank
you do.
you.
And I hope we can do it again in the Rook studio next time.
Thank you. I hope so. Thank you for doing this, Jian. Thank you.
Merci. Khodafez.
Merci. خداحافظ.